Did you know that during season 20 of Sister Wives, Kody Brown stared straight into the camera and announced that he had been completely honest with his family? Nothing was hidden. Nothing was unfair. That single sentence has become the very thing now tearing his claims apart. Because behind closed doors, buried within a stack of unsealed documents stamped under a quiet court order, sat evidence suggesting the exact opposite. Evidence the public never saw. Evidence the wives never knew existed. Evidence revealing a private financial world that contradicted every reassurance he had ever spoken on screen. While viewers watched a family breaking, while the world saw arguments, tears, and promises of unity, Kody Brown was allegedly standing in a courtroom claiming that Christine, Janelle, and Mary were too emotional to be trusted with decisions over Coyote Pass. Minutes later, the judge granted him and Robyn exclusive authority over the entire property. The wives were unaware. The cameras were rolling. The truth was hidden. And that was only the beginning. Because once those files were finally found and opened, once the paperwork was printed and placed into the hands of the women who had trusted him for decades, the reality of what was planned became undeniable. This was not a rumor, not an argument over dinner, not a misunderstanding filmed for drama. These were legal documents.
Signed. Filed.
Stamped. Documents outlining a plan to shift the future of Coyote Pass solely into the direction of Kody and Robyn, leaving the others with almost nothing. Now imagine this. Kody sits at his desk in Flagstaff, his jaw clenched, his fingers interlocked, the dream he preached to America spinning in his mind. For homes, one family, unity, that dream had already died. But the control over the land was all he had left, and he was not willing to share it. Meanwhile, in another home, Janelle stands in her kitchen holding the anonymous paper someone quietly sent. She reads the signatures. The dates do not match what Kody claimed. The approvals contradict every conversation she remembers. She whispers to herself, "He lied again." Across town, Christine sorts through her own set of documents. She recalls the years of dismissals, the frustration, the explosive arguments whenever she pushed for honesty about Coyote Pass. Now she understands why he had reacted with fury. It was never because she was wrong. It was because she was dangerously close to the truth. She steps outside into the cold night air. Betrayal hits harder than any winter wind. Robyn, meanwhile, insists she knew nothing. She clutches a pillow, insisting she never understood what she was signing. Yet her name appears on 2 agreements. 2 different years, both excluding the other wives. And one of them carries a clause that changes everything. Redistribution of ownership. A quiet legal shift of control. The deeper the wives read, the more the truth reveals itself. This was no chaotic collapse. It was a carefully structured plan. Years in the making. A dissolution of joint ownership clause had been included for the moment the family fractured. It was written into the land itself. The breakup was not a surprise. It was a step in the process. Mary sees her name printed beside a chilling note. Non-financial partner. Her vote did not matter. Her presence did not matter. Her future on the land did not exist. She does not cry. She simply goes quiet. The kind of quiet that comes from a wound too deep for shouting. Across 3 different homes, the same pages lie on 3 different tables. Flickering lights above them. Cold silence surrounding them. Years of loyalty melting into disbelief. And somewhere else, alone in a room that feels smaller by the minute, Kody Brown stares down at the same paperwork. He knows what comes next. For years he insisted that this land would keep the family together. Instead, the truth written in those files is what finally pulled them apart. This is not the story Sister Wives was supposed to tell. This is the story the receipts wrote. And once the wives learned it, everything they believed about their marriage, their family, and their future changed forever. The moment the wives realized the scale of the betrayal, their world shifted. It wasn't just a shock. It was a call to arms. Janelle called Christine immediately. Christine called Mary. A chain reaction ignited, not of panic, but of determination. For the first time in years, the women were united in purpose, And it had nothing to do with cameras, nothing to do with TLC. It was survival. Lawyers were contacted. Meetings were arranged. Questions that had simmered in the back of their minds for years were finally asked out loud. Why was Kody allowed to handle the finances alone? Why had certain signatures appeared without their knowledge? And most importantly, why had Robyn's name become entwined in documents that rewrote the ownership of a land they all had believed belonged to the family? Each woman processed the betrayal differently. Janelle, ever the pragmatist, pored over every line of text. She traced signatures, compared dates, and documented every inconsistency. Christine, usually the voice of calm, allowed herself the rare luxury of fury. The anger was steady, quiet, but it burned with a clarity she had never felt before. Mary, often the mediator, felt a cold determination. This was not about reconciliation anymore. This was about justice, and she was ready to fight. Meanwhile, Kody Brown was fully aware of the storm he had unleashed. He moved through the house like a man trapped in his own strategy, replaying every choice, every meeting with the financial advisor, every secret conversation with Robyn. He knew the women had the receipts now. He knew the truth could no longer be contained. The first court session was tense. Cameras were barred, but the atmosphere was cinematic in its own right. Lawyers presented evidence, signatures were dissected, and timelines reconstructed. The air was thick with anticipation. The unsealed files told the story of planning, of premeditated financial control, and of promises broken quietly over the years. Robyn tried to defend herself, claiming ignorance. "I didn't understand," she said, but the documents contradicted her. Every clause, every line, every stamp told a different story. Kody had executed the plan with precision, and Robyn had, knowingly or unknowingly, been a part of it. As the session continued, the narrative shifted from legalities to emotion. The judge, reviewing years of paper trails and signed agreements, saw the scope of the betrayal. It wasn't just a dispute over property. It was a betrayal of trust, of marriage vows, and of family unity. And for the first time, the wives felt the weight of their collective power. Outside the courthouse, the wives regrouped. The air was electric. They were no longer divided by Kody's manipulation or by the artificial harmony portrayed on television. Now, every glance, every whispered conversation was rooted in clarity. They had the receipts. They had the proof. They had each other. And for the first time, they could finally rewrite their story on their own terms. The fallout didn't end there. Social media exploded. Fans dissected every revelation, and the quiet corners of Reddit became battlegrounds for discussion. But the wives were focused not on the public, not on the drama, not on the spectacle. They were focused on justice, on reclaiming what had been denied to them, and on holding Kody accountable for the years of secrecy and manipulation. Coyote Pass, the land that was supposed to unite them, had become the ultimate symbol of betrayal. Every hill, every empty plot, every sketch Kody had drawn on a whiteboard now carried the weight of deceit. But amid the anger and heartbreak, there was also a spark of liberation. For the first time in decades, the wives were taking control of their lives. And the story didn't end in the courtroom. This was only the beginning. Because now that the documents were exposed, the decisions made in secrecy were no longer untouchable. The carefully constructed plan that had seemed foolproof was unraveling before their eyes. The battle for truth, for fairness, for their legacy, had only just begun. And the women knew one thing. No matter how long it took, no matter how high the stakes, they would never allow their trust to be exploited again. The day of the confrontation arrived. The wives entered the courthouse with a mix of resolve and quiet fury. Janelle's steps were measured, Christine's jaw tight, Mary's eyes steady. They were no longer just participants in a reality show. They were women armed with truth, ready to face the man who had orchestrated years of deception. Inside, Kody Brown waited, sitting stiffly at the plaintiff's table. He looked composed, a carefully constructed calm, but every glance at the incoming wives betrayed tension. The weight of the unsealed files had finally caught up with him. Every signature, every clause, Every disputed stamp was now evidence of betrayal, and the wives held it all in their hands. The session began quietly. Lawyers presented exhibits, each one more damning than the last. Signatures that Kody had claimed were routine were now dissected under scrutiny. Agreements he swore had been explained to everyone proved to be exclusive to him and Robyn. Clauses redistributing ownership without consent were highlighted. The air was electric. The tension in the room was almost unbearable. Then came the moment that had every viewer on edge, the direct confrontation. The wives faced Kody across the room.
No cameras. No script. No filters. Why?
Christine's voice cracked but carried across the room. Why did you hide this from us? Why did you make decisions about our future without telling us? Kody shifted in his seat, glancing briefly at Robyn. It wasn't like that, he muttered. I was just trying to protect the family, to make things easier. Protect the family? Janelle's tone was sharp, cutting. Protect us from what? The truth? From fairness? You made decisions that affected our homes, our security, our children without us. That is not protection. That is control. Mary, usually quiet, leaned forward. And your protection meant we counted for nothing. My future, my stake, my life on that land, erased. Just like that. Robyn spoke up, her voice wavering. I didn't understand what was happening. I trusted him. But the documents told a different story. The two agreements she had signed, one in 2019 and another in 2021, clearly redistributed ownership in favor of Kody and Robyn. The lawyers presented each page, each clause, each stamp. The evidence was undeniable. The judge, observing the intensity, finally spoke. These are serious matters. The documents indicate that decisions were made without the consent of all interested parties. This is not a matter of simple oversight. Kody swallowed hard. The calm he projected on camera was gone. His hands trembled slightly as he reached for a pen, the weight of every hidden decision finally pressing down. He had spent years scripting a narrative for the cameras, but now reality, unfiltered and merciless, was unfolding. Outside the courthouse, the tension spilled over into the quiet streets of Flagstaff. Fans speculated, neighbors whispered, and social media erupted. Yet the wives were focused solely on the task at hand. This wasn't about public opinion. This wasn't about drama. This was about reclaiming control over their lives and their property. As the session drew to a close, the wives left together, documents clutched in their hands like armor. Their steps were synchronized, their resolve unshakable. The battle was far from over, but for the first time, the power had shifted. The women were no longer reacting. They were acting. And Kody? He was left alone with the reality that every calculated move, every secret agreement, every moment he had claimed honesty on camera was now exposed. The land that had been meant to hold the family together had become the battlefield where truth finally won. The story of Coyote Pass was no longer Kody's to control. The wives held it now, and with it, the ability to rewrite the ending they deserved, one built not on manipulation or secrecy, but on transparency, justice, and finally, freedom. Weeks passed after that courtroom showdown. The city of Flagstaff seemed unchanged, yet everything for the Brown family had shifted. The unsealed documents had done their work. The wives had exposed the secret plan, and the legal process moved steadily, each hearing peeling back another layer of Kody's control. Inside the courtroom, the final verdict was read. Every clause, every signature, every hidden transfer was scrutinized. The judge's voice echoed in the hushed room. The court finds that the unilateral decisions to redistribute ownership of Coyote Pass without full consent were improper. The agreements executed solely by Kody Brown and Robyn Brown are hereby invalidated. Full consideration and approval must include all parties with rightful interest. A stunned silence followed. For Kody, it was a quiet devastation.
No dramatic outburst, no shouting.
Just the weight of truth pressing down, the years of manipulation finally undone by the law. For the wives, it was vindication. The power of secrecy had been broken. The land that had been weaponized against them was now a symbol of their resilience. Outside the courthouse, cameras captured the emotional release. Janelle clutched her folder of papers, tears streaming silently down her face. Christine exhaled, a mixture of relief and lingering anger in her chest. Mary's gaze was steady, almost cold, but filled with a quiet triumph. They had fought for truth, and the truth had won. The public reaction was explosive. Fans dissected every detail online, Reddit threads erupted, and news outlets ran headlines about the hidden drama behind Season 20. For years, viewers had seen arguments, tears, and reconciliations. Now they were seeing the reality, a carefully orchestrated plan of financial and legal control, revealed in painstaking detail. Social media debates raged, but the wives paid little attention. Their focus had shifted from drama to survival. They had regained control of what was theirs, not just property, but their narrative. Theirs was the story of resilience, of reclaiming agency, of standing united when deceit threatened to tear them apart. In private moments, the wives reflected on what had happened. Janelle, always the meticulous planner, reviewed every document one last time, ensuring nothing was overlooked. Christine allowed herself to grieve the years of betrayal and then channeled that energy into rebuilding her trust in herself. Mary, who had quietly endured manipulation, finally embraced the power of being heard and respected. For Kody and Robyn, the fallout was undeniable. The land could no longer serve as leverage. Every misstep that had been concealed now played out publicly, leaving them to face scrutiny, criticism, and the consequences of their choices. The dream of Coyote Pass, for homes, one family, perfect unity, had crumbled. And yet, amid the ruin, a kind of clarity emerged. The wives had survived manipulation, betrayal, and secrecy. They had faced the truth, held it up, and demanded justice. Coyote Pass, once a symbol of control, had become the ground where the women finally reclaimed their power. The cameras may have captured only fragments of their story, but the truth, raw, unflinching, and undeniable, had been revealed. Season 20 was no longer a tale of familial healing. It was a story of exposure, of courage, and of women refusing to be erased. The final image lingers, the three wives standing together, each holding a copy of the same documents, each facing the sun filtering through their windows. Across town, Kody sits alone, the weight of lost control pressing down, while the land he once used to bind a family together now stands as a monument to the truth finally unveiled. This was the end of secrecy, the end of manipulation, and the beginning of a new chapter, one written by the women who refuse to be silenced. The narrator shifts, slow and deliberate, like the calm before a storm. This is the moment where legal consequences can no longer be ignored. The wives schedule a meeting with a neutral legal mediator, not a full lawyer yet, but someone experienced enough to interpret complex property documents. A mediator who had handled hundreds of disputes, but never one quite like this. He lays the papers out carefully, one by one. His finger pauses on the refinance agreement. This clause, he says, gives Mr. Brown and Mrs. Robyn Brown primary authority over all decisions concerning Coyote Pass. Christine leans forward, disbelief written across her face. Even though we all live on the land? Yes, the mediator replies quietly. Because these documents were filed without your signatures. Janelle shakes her head. But that's illegal. Not exactly, he says. Unethical, yes. Legal? That depends. These were approved under a provisional court order. If the court sanctioned this, even temporarily, undoing it becomes much harder. The room goes silent. Christine's voice cracks first. So, a judge already saw these? The mediator nods slowly. Allegedly, yes. The wives now realize the staggering truth. A judge may have been involved years ago, without their knowledge. We shift to Robyn's POV. She sits beside Kody in their living room, tissues scattered around her. I didn't understand, she insists. I trusted Kody. I trusted the process. I thought it was just a formality. But the documents tell a different story. Plain English, clear instructions. The signatories, Kody and Robyn, hold full authority over Coyote Pass. Allocation of property value rests entirely in their hands. Robyn whispers, "I didn't know this would hurt them." But tears don't change the ink. Kody rubs his forehead, muttering, "No one was supposed to see these." The quiet confession hangs in the air. He never expected the documents to surface, never expected the wives to band together, never expected this escalation. Now, the timeline stitches together, cinematic and heavy. 2018, Kody buys Coyote Pass, promising unity. 2019, a secret refinance request is signed by Kody and Robyn. 2020, the family begins to fracture. Kody claims the breakup was unexpected. 2021, ownership redistribution clause is activated, without the wives' knowledge. 2022, Christine leaves. 2023, court documents tied to the refinance are unsealed. 2024, a bank clerk flags the mismatched signature. 2025, the wives finally confront the truth. The confrontation takes place in a neutral conference room. Beige walls, stiff chairs, heavy air. Christine speaks first. "Kody, why did you do this?" Kody clasps his hands. "I didn't betray anyone. I made decisions to protect the land, to protect you." Janelle fires back. "By locking us out of ownership?" Mary, quiet but firm. "That's exactly what happened." Kody slams his hands on the table. "You don't understand how hard this has been for me. The bills, the sacrifices." The mediator interrupts. "Mr. Brown, please." Christine slides a page across the table. The signature page. "Explain this." Kody swallows. "It was a formality." Christine whispers, voice trembling but firm. "You signed away our future." Robyn cries softly. "We didn't mean to hurt anyone." Janelle shakes her head. "No more lies. No more stories." Silence falls. The mediator clears his throat. "Given what I'm seeing, the next step is a formal legal review. If these documents were approved under any court order, you will need to challenge them. Otherwise, the ownership distribution stands." Kody blinks. "Challenge?" "Yes," the mediator confirms. Christine stands, voice steady. "We're filing." Kody snaps. "You're doing this to punish me." "No," Christine says. "You punished us. We're just finally holding you accountable." The wives leave the room together, exhausted but united. Kody and Robyn follow, the weight of truth pressing down. Session 3 will bring the hardest revelation yet. The judge's involvement wasn't accidental. It was intentional. Inside a beige courthouse cabinet, the unsealed files reveal a provisional court order. Kody and Robyn allegedly convinced a judge, behind the wives' backs, to grant them temporary authority, citing significant interpersonal conflict among the family. 2 primary signers, not 4, not the united family, just 2. Christine whispers, "They told the judge we were broken." Janelle, voice soft, "And used it to take everything." Mary stares at the faded stamp. "They left us on paper before they left us in real life." Robyn sits quietly, knowing the receipts show she was complicit, if only in presence. Kody paces, realizing the wives now hold the weapons, the paperwork, the judge's stamp. He mutters, "They never understood." But they did. They understood perfectly. They just trusted him too much. Then the final bombshell. The clerk produces a projected land allocation draft. 52% Robyn, 28% Kody, 12% Janelle, 8% Christine, 0% Mary. The narrator's voice drops, slow and heavy. This wasn't just a refinance. It wasn't a redistribution. It was a premeditated consolidation of power, almost entirely in Robyn's hands. The wives were never meant to see it. Outside the courthouse, they walked together, quiet, devastated, but for the first time, united. Christine, "He planned a future where we didn't exist." Janelle, "He left us on paper before he left us in real life." Mary, "I'm not staying silent anymore." The narrator leans in, building tension. This isn't over. The wives are preparing to file a legal challenge. They'll bring in a lawyer, someone strategic, someone who knows Kody's tactics inside and out, someone who can expose the hidden agreements and fight for the family's rightful share. And what the lawyer reveals next, that is the twist that turns the entire case upside down. The next chapter begins inside the courthouse. The wives enter with quiet determination, folders clutched tightly, papers meticulously organized. Their lawyer, someone who had previously advised a close associate of Janelle, had reviewed every single document. She was strategic, ruthless in her precision, and completely prepared to dismantle the web of secrecy Kody and Robyn had spun. The courtroom feels charged, almost electric. Kody sits at the plaintiff's table, stiff, jaw tight, hands folded. Robyn clings to him, trying to maintain composure, but her eyes betray fear. For the first time, they are facing not only the evidence, but a formidable legal force that cannot be swayed by charm, tears, or manipulation. The lawyer begins her opening statement, calm but sharp. Your Honor, we are here because these documents were signed, filed, and allegedly approved without the knowledge or consent of all rightful stakeholders. The unsealed files reveal decisions made unilaterally, with the intent of consolidating control of Kody Pass in favor of two parties, at the expense of the others. The judge listens intently, flipping through the exhibits. There's a pause, a tense, deliberate silence, before the lawyer continues. The provisional court order cited significant interpersonal conflict among family members. Yet the evidence shows only Kody and Robyn were present during that hearing. The other wives were never represented, never informed, and never given the chance to protect their interests. Christine leans forward, eyes wide. The weight of years of deception presses down on her. Janelle's hands tremble slightly, gripping the edge of her folder. Mary's face is calm, but her eyes are cold, determined. This is the moment of truth. The lawyer drops the next bombshell. Further documents, previously unexamined, indicate a projected land allocation draft. According to this draft, the distribution of property was deliberately skewed. Robyn, 52%, Kody, 28%, Janelle, 12%, Christine, 8%, Mary, 0%. This was not a clerical error. This was a planned consolidation of power. A gasp reverberates through the courtroom. Kody freezes, glancing at Robyn. Her hands shake as she reaches for a tissue. For the first time, the reality of the situation hits them both. The wives have irrefutable evidence. The judge speaks, slow, deliberate, almost measured. These are serious allegations. The documentation suggests decisions were made without full consent, potentially violating fiduciary responsibilities. This court will review the validity of the provisional order and the actions of the signatories. A full hearing will be scheduled to determine the rightful ownership distribution. The lawyer leans in toward the wives.
This is your moment.
You've uncovered the receipts. You have legal standing. The court now has the power to restore what was taken and hold accountable those who acted in secret. Kody lowers his head, muttering under his breath. They'll never forgive me. Christine shakes her head, firm and resolute. We're not asking for forgiveness. We're demanding justice. Outside the courthouse, the tension is palpable. Media cameras flash. Fans murmur. But the wives are focused on the next steps, the filing, the challenge, the legal strategy that will finally force accountability. The narrator leans in, voice low, cinematic. This isn't just a family dispute. It's a legal battle, a fight for truth, and a reckoning years in the making. Every lie, every hidden signature, every secret court maneuver is now on the table. The wives are no longer passive participants in Kody's narrative. They are reclaiming control one document at a time. And the final twist? The lawyer has discovered an overlooked clause, a loophole that could allow the court to completely nullify the ownership redistribution, restoring full rights to the wives and challenging not just the paperwork, but the very legitimacy of the previous provisional order. Kody and Robyn exchange a look. Fear, for the first time, replaces arrogance. The wives stand taller, united, prepared for the legal storm ahead. The battle isn't over, But for the first time, the scales are tipping in their favor. The narrator concludes, voice heavy with suspense. The documents, the judge's stamp, the hidden clauses, all of it was waiting for the right moment. And now, the moment has arrived. Season 20 was just the beginning. The real fight for Coyote Pass, for justice and for the truth, is about to begin. The courtroom was silent as the judge prepared to read the verdict. Every eye in the room was fixed on the bench. Kody sat rigid, jaw tight, hands clenched. Robyn tried to maintain composure, but her shoulders trembled. The wives sat together, folders in hand, hearts pounding, waiting for years of secrecy and betrayal to finally meet the light of justice. The judge's voice cut through the tension. After reviewing all documentation, including the unsealed files, provisional orders, and all related communications, this court finds that the unilateral decisions made by Mr. Kody Brown and Mrs. Robyn Brown without the knowledge or consent of all parties were improper. The provisional order granting temporary authority to 2 signatories is hereby nullified. Ownership and decision-making rights over Coyote Pass shall be equally restored to all rightful family members, with further oversight to ensure transparency. A hush fell over the room. Then, slowly, the wives exhaled, relief and triumph mixing in the air. Christine's hands shook as she clutched her documents. Janelle's glasses glinted with unshed tears. Mary's expression was stoic, but her eyes burned with quiet vindication. Kody sat frozen, processing what he had long denied. Robyn buried her face in her hands. The control they had tried to secure through secrecy had been stripped away, and now the truth was undeniable. Outside the courthouse, media crews swarmed. Social media erupted. Fans dissected every clause, every signature, every twist of the story. For years, viewers had only seen fragments of the Brown family drama on camera, arguments, tears, reconciliations, but now the real story was public. A carefully orchestrated legal and financial plan had been exposed, and the wives had reclaimed their rightful place. The wives walked out together, calm but resolute. No dramatic shouts, no televised tantrums, just a quiet, devastating clarity. Christine spoke first, voice soft but unwavering. He planned a future where we didn't exist. Janelle nodded, whispering, he left us on paper before he left us in real life. Mary exhaled slowly, finally at peace with her decision. I'm not staying silent anymore. The narrator leans in, voice cinematic, heavy with tension and closure. Coyote Pass, once a symbol of family unity, had become a battleground of secrets, lies, and power. But now, with the documents laid bare, the provisional orders nullified, and the court's decision in hand, the wives had reclaimed their story. Justice had been served, not through drama, not through tears alone, but through courage, persistence, and the relentless pursuit of truth. The camera pans over the wives standing united, holding copies of the documents, sunlight filtering through courthouse windows. Across town, Kody and Robyn leave silently, stripped of the power they once wielded. The land that was supposed to bind a family together had instead become a monument to betrayal, and now, it was a testament to the strength of those who refused to be erased. The narrator concludes, voice soft but piercing. This wasn't just a family dispute. This was decades of secrecy, manipulation, and lies exposed in full view. Season 20 was only the beginning. The Brown wives survived, reclaimed their power, and finally turned the story upside down. And for the first time, the world saw the truth, raw, unflinching, and undeniable. The wind outside the lawyer's office cut deeper than any season. It wasn't just cold, it was the weight of truth, creeping under skin, under bones, under certainty. Christine clutched the stack of unsealed files to her chest. Janelle walked beside her, jaw locked, every step held together by sheer willpower. Mary, usually quiet, looked unusually resolved. They weren't here to ask questions anymore. They were here to get answers. Inside, Diane Hallwell waited, calm, composed, reviewing the thick pile of documents. Known across Arizona for untangling the most brutal family property battles, Diane was direct, efficient, and unflinching. Yet, when she looked up at the women, something softened her gaze. "You weren't supposed to find these," she said quietly, tapping the judge's stamped order. "And that is exactly why you need me." The wives took their seats. The room was lined with law books, case files, certificates, authority and power in every corner. But the truth Diane revealed needed no frills. "I've reviewed every document, every signature," she said. "These weren't accidents, oversights, misunderstandings. They were deliberate, structured to push you out." Christine closed her eyes. Janelle swallowed hard. Mary bit her lip. Diane continued. "This wasn't a simple refinancing. It was a staged transfer. Someone went to a judge, without informing the rest of the family, and used your conflict against you." Janelle pinched the bridge of her nose. "Kody and Robyn." "Yes," Diane said flatly. The weight of it hit them. Diane opened another folder, a manila one with a translated transcript clipped inside. The date, October 13th, 2020. Parties present, K's Brown R. Brown. Subject, financial clarification and land authority. Christine's stomach twisted. That morning, she had been home, filming, crying. Kody wasn't running errands. He was telling a judge that she, Janelle, and Mary were too emotional to be involved in big financial decisions. Janelle stared. "I can't believe he said that. I handled our finances for years." Diane leaned back. That claim likely convinced the judge to streamline decision-making, giving him the power to do everything else. Then came the bank email, the final, chilling piece. Subject, clarification request, property allocation proposal. First line, please confirm intent to transfer majority equity to R. Brown pending final documentation. Christine shook her head, trembling. He was going to give her the land, not us. Janelle whispered, her, and he kept telling us we were all equal. Mary's eyes stayed on the floor. He lied every time he said unity. Diane tapped the table. And that's where your legal case becomes strong. Our case. Christine whispered. Yes, Diane said firmly. You didn't sign these documents. You weren't informed. You have legal rights. You can challenge this entire process. You can request a reversal. Janelle's breath caught. We can undo it? Yes, Diane confirmed. But it will take everything you've got. Filing a petition to reopen a court order isn't simple. It's not polite. It's war. Christine's hands trembled. Years of trust and belief shattered into stacks of paper. Janelle's resolve hardened. We have to do it. Mary nodded. I'm with you both. Diane smiled faintly. Good. If you don't file, you lose everything permanently. The next hour was methodical. Evidence, transcripts, declarations of exclusion, proof of misrepresentation, all neatly assembled. The timeline became clear. 2018, promise of unity. 2019, secrets begin. 2020, court appearance behind their backs. 2021, redistribution clause activated. 2022, family breakdown. 2023, filming chaos. 2024, hidden signatures discovered. 2025, lawyers confirm the truth. Robyn sat alone later, watching the email, majority equity to her name. She whispered, I didn't ask for this, but I benefited. She wasn't blameless, yet neither was she heartless. Kody sat at the kitchen table, head buried in his hands. I was trying to protect my family. But which family? The documents, the receipts, the transcripts told a different story. He wasn't protecting the family. He was protecting his future. Finally, the petition was signed. Christine first, steady hands. Janelle second, jaw tight. Mary last, eyes glistening but strong. Diane gathered the papers. This goes to the courthouse first thing in the morning. The wives stepped into the cool evening air. Sunlight caught their faces. For the first time in years, they felt the weight lift. Coyote Pass hadn't united them. It had revealed them. Every lie, every secret, every manipulation laid bare. The day of the hearing arrived, gray skies over Flagstaff. The courthouse was busy, but inside, a storm unlike any the cameras could show was about to hit. Kody and Robyn sat opposite the wives, tense and pleading. The judge entered, calm, deliberate, and began reading. The petition alleges misrepresentation, exclusion of involved parties, and improper execution of authority. Diane presented Exhibit F, the bank email confirming majority equity to Robyn. Silence fell. Kody snapped. That wasn't my intention. The judge's gaze was steady. Intent doesn't erase the impact. Transparency is required, especially in family property matters. The projected ownership draft was revealed. Robyn 52%, Kody 28%, Janelle 12%, Christine 8%, Mary 0%. Kody looked down. Christine's tears fell, not for revenge, but release. Justice wasn't about joy. It was about accountability. The judge reopened the 2020 order, placing an immediate hold on all transfers, ensuring all parties were included in the new property evaluation. He encouraged long-term mediation, noting that the family required healing beyond finances. Outside, the wives walked together, sunlight on their faces. They weren't broken. They weren't forgotten. They had reclaimed their voice. Robyn and Kody emerged minutes later, Robyn silent, Kody alone in thought. Later that evening, the wives gathered again. Christine whispered, "We did the right thing." Janelle nodded. Mary added softly, "And we did it together." The land that once divided them now stood as a testament. Truth cannot stay hidden. Lies cannot outlast courage. And for the first time in years, they were free. Coyote Pass wasn't the land that united them. It was the land that revealed them, and finally, set them free. The night after the hearing, the house was unusually quiet. Christine, Janelle, and Mary sat together in Christine's living room, the city lights of Flagstaff twinkling through the blinds. No one spoke at first. Their minds were full, but their hearts were heavier. Every paper, every signature, every deceitful act replayed like a storm inside their heads. Finally, Christine broke the silence. "It's not over," she said softly, almost to herself. "We've won the court ruling, yes, but that doesn't fix the years, the lies, the manipulation." Janelle nodded, fingers tracing the rim of her mug.
No.
"It doesn't, but it gives us power. Power to stop it from happening again. Power to protect our children, our voices, our future." Mary, the quietest of the three, finally spoke. Her voice was steady, surprisingly strong. "And that's what matters now. Not revenge. Not anger. Control over what's ours. That's the real victory." Across town, Kody and Robyn sat in silence as well. The weight of the ruling had settled heavily on them, though in very different ways. Robyn's mind raced, not with fear, not with guilt exactly, but with the complex, unbearable knowledge that she had been both participant and victim in the scheme that had nearly erased the other wives. She glanced at Kody. His eyes were empty, staring into nothing, and for the first time, she saw him truly alone, stripped of the power he thought was untouchable. Kody finally spoke, his voice quiet, almost a whisper. I didn't think they'd fight back this hard." Robyn shook her head, lips trembling. "You underestimated them. You underestimated all of us." Meanwhile, Diane Hallwell wasn't done. Even after the courthouse doors closed, she kept working. She had already begun mapping out the next legal steps, formal evaluations of property value, mediation strategies, and a plan to ensure that no future attempts at exclusion could succeed. She knew Kody and Robyn might try to appeal, to manipulate, to stall. But the documents, the evidence, the transparency, all were now firmly in the wives' hands. The next morning, Christine received a call from a court clerk. A tentative schedule had been set for the property evaluation. She shared the news with Janelle and Mary. "It's real. It's happening," she said, voice trembling with cautious hope. Janelle exhaled sharply. "We're actually doing this." After years of silence, after years of betrayal, We're taking it back." Mary smiled faintly, a weight lifting from her shoulders. "We're not just taking it back. We're protecting what matters, ourselves, our children, our dignity." And as the day wore on, the sisters in arms, the wives who had endured so much manipulation and deception, began to plan. Not schemes or revenge, no, this was different. Legal, strategic, and unstoppable. They consulted Diane at every step, reviewing documents, compiling evidence, preparing for the evaluation that would finally cement their control over what had always been theirs. Kody, on the other hand, sat quietly in his study, surrounded by reminders of Coyote Pass, the land, the home, the memories. But now, the memories were tainted. Every promise, every declaration of equality, every assertion that we're a family felt hollow. For the first time, the empire he had built on secrecy and control felt fragile, vulnerable, and terrifyingly exposed. Robyn wandered outside, looking at the sunset across the desert. The land stretched endlessly, untouched and eternal, yet it now carried the weight of the family's fractured trust. She whispered to herself, it wasn't supposed to end like this. But even as the words left her lips, a part of her knew. The truth had been revealed, and nothing could ever hide it again. The next chapter was coming, and it would be bigger than any argument, bigger than any court filing. Coyote Pass had become more than land. It had become a battlefield of truth, courage, and accountability. And the wives were ready. The narrator's voice rises, slow and cinematic. This isn't just about property anymore. It's about justice, about power, about reclaiming what was taken under the guise of protection. And for the first time, the women of Coyote Pass weren't just fighting back, they were winning. Fade to black, the wind whispering across the desert, a silent promise of battles yet to come. The morning of the property evaluation arrived with a pale, washed-out sky over Flagstaff. The desert air was sharp and biting, carrying with it the tension of what was about to unfold. Christine, Janelle, and Mary arrived at the courthouse early, files in hand, ready to present every scrap of evidence they had gathered. Diane Hallwell was already inside, meticulously reviewing documents, making last-minute notes, and issuing precise instructions. "This is more than just numbers," she said quietly to the wives as they entered. "This is about accountability. This is about ensuring that every voice, every right, every person is recognized. Do not let them intimidate you. Stand together. Be firm." Kody and Robyn arrived shortly after, walking through the heavy wooden doors with an air of cautious confidence. They were used to controlling the narrative, controlling the family, controlling the land. But today, they were not in control. Today, they were facing evidence, witnesses, and a united front they had underestimated. Inside the evaluation room, the air was thick with anticipation. Assessors, mediators, and legal clerks sat at their tables, papers stacked neatly before them. The room smelled faintly of old wood and bureaucracy. Diane motioned to the wives to sit together, their united presence a silent statement. They were no longer isolated, no longer silenced, no longer invisible. The proceedings began. Diane started by presenting the unsealed 2020 court transcript, reading aloud Kody's statements claiming the wives were too emotional to participate in financial decisions. Every word hit like a hammer, leaving no room for doubt. Kody's face hardened, his jaw tightening with each line. Robyn's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't interrupt. Then came the bank email, Exhibit F. Diane laid it on the table in front of the mediators. The room went quiet. The line was simple, chilling. "Please confirm intent to transfer majority equity to R. Brown pending final documentation." Christine's hands shook slightly as Diane pointed to it. "This document shows intent. It shows planning. And it was done without consent, without transparency, without fairness." Janelle's voice, calm and steady, rose next. "We managed the finances for years. We made every difficult decision together. And yet, here we are, erased on paper, betrayed in secrecy. This is not protection. This is manipulation." Mary nodded firmly. We are not just here to reclaim what's ours. We are here to ensure it never happens again. To anyone in this family. Kody opened his mouth, but Diane cut him off. Your intentions are irrelevant. Actions matter. And these actions excluded equal stakeholders and misrepresented the family's reality to the court. The mediators nodded, taking notes. They looked at the documents, then at the wives, then back at Kody and Robyn. The tide was shifting. For the first time, the power dynamic had flipped. Diane moved to the projected ownership draft. She held it up for all to see. Robyn 52%, Kody 28%, Janelle 12%, Christine 8%, Mary 0%. The numbers hung in the air like a verdict yet to be spoken. Do you see this? Diane asked calmly. This wasn't accidental. This was designed to consolidate power. And it was done without the participation of all legal stakeholders. This is not just a claim. This is evidence. And evidence matters. Kody's shoulders slumped. For the first time in years, his composure faltered. Robyn reached for his hand, but he didn't respond. The wives were unwavering, firm in their stance, eyes locked forward, holding the line together. The mediators asked questions, clarifying valuations, distribution methods, and the implications of the prior court order. Diane answered confidently, referencing transcripts, emails, and the Declaration of Exclusion. Every piece of paper, every unsealed file, every shred of truth reinforced the wives' position. After hours of testimony and review, the mediators convened privately. The wives stepped outside into the late afternoon sun, the air crisp, carrying a weight of anticipation. Diane approached them, her face calm but her eyes alight with quiet satisfaction. They saw it, she said simply. Every document, every email, every manipulated clause. They understand. You have the leverage now, and the court will honor this. You are no longer invisible. The wives exchanged glances, relief, vindication, and an unexpected sense of power washing over them. Christine's voice was soft but resolute. We're not asking anymore. We're taking what's ours, what we've always deserved. Janelle added, a small but determined smile forming, and we're doing it together. Mary, for the first time in years, laughed quietly, a mixture of disbelief and triumph. It feels good.
Strong. Free.
Across the room, Kody and Robyn were left standing, facing the consequences of their decisions, their secrecy, and their misjudgment. For years, they had controlled the narrative, manipulated the family, and hoped the truth would stay hidden. But it hadn't. And now, the wives were no longer willing to stay silent. The narrator's voice rises, cinematic, finalizing the tension. Kody Pass was never just land. It was the mirror that reflected truth, betrayal, and courage. And today, for the first time in years, the women who were silenced, sidelined, and erased reclaimed not just their property, but their voices, their dignity, and their power. The battle is far from over, but for now, justice has a face, and it's the women of Kody Pass. Fade to the desert horizon, wind blowing, a silent promise of battles yet to come, but this time, fought on their terms. The following morning, the courthouse buzzed quietly, the hum of fluorescent lights and shuffling papers barely masking the tension. The wives arrived early, Diane at their side, carrying every piece of evidence like armor. Their confidence had grown overnight, tempered by anger, pain, and the certainty that the truth was finally on their side. Kody and Robyn arrived shortly after, their calm veneer noticeably thinner. Kody's eyes darted across the room, measuring, calculating, as if trying to gauge where the advantage had shifted. Robyn held onto him lightly, mascara smudged, hands trembling, the weight of her complicity finally sinking in. Inside the hearing room, the judge entered, flipping through the newly submitted petition. He gave no introduction, no preamble, just a measured look at the parties before him. Diane stepped forward. Your Honor, she began, voice steady, unwavering. We are here to address the improper exclusion of 3 legal stakeholders in the 2020 Provisional Court Order regarding Kody Pass. The evidence is clear. Mr. Brown and Mrs. Robyn Brown presented incomplete and misleading information to the court, intentionally omitting the participation of the other property holders, which has resulted in the consolidation of ownership contrary to law and fairness. She laid out every document, the 2020 transcript, the bank email instructing majority equity be transferred to Robyn, the projected ownership draft. The room grew silent. Kody's fingers twitched. Robyn's hands were clasped tightly in her lap, nails digging into her palms. The judge flipped to the projected ownership draft, his eyes scanning the percentages. Robyn 52%, Kody 28%, Janelle 12%, Christine 8%, Mary 0%. He looked up slowly. Mr. Brown, is this an accurate representation of intent at the time? Kody swallowed, words caught in his throat. It reflects the decisions made for clarity, to manage the land efficiently. Efficiency does not excuse exclusion, the judge said firmly. You failed to notify all legal stakeholders and misrepresented the family dynamic. Christine spoke, voice firm, unwavering. Your Honor, we were not notified. We did not consent. Every step taken in 2020 was behind our backs, based on lies and manipulation. Janelle added, I've managed finances for decades. There was no chaos except what Mr. Brown created. He removed our rights on paper to benefit one person. Mary's voice was quiet but pointed. We were erased. Not just from the decisions, but from the narrative itself. Diane leaned forward, holding the bank email up. Your Honor, this email confirms intent to transfer majority equity to one party, R. Brown, without the knowledge or consent of all legal stakeholders. This demonstrates clear consolidation of authority and misrepresentation. The judge studied the email, his expression unreadable. He then turned to Kody and Robyn. Do you acknowledge that this transfer was executed without proper consent? Kody's jaw tightened, his shoulders slumped. I acted to protect the land. Intent is irrelevant. The judge interrupted. Actions are what matter. You excluded legal stakeholders to consolidate power. That is clear. Robyn's eyes filled with tears. We didn't mean to hurt anyone, she whispered. Regardless of intent, Diane countered, the exclusion was improper and the consolidation was inequitable. We request a full reevaluation of ownership, including all legal stakeholders and immediate reversal of any unauthorized transfers. The judge nodded, closing the file slowly. Given the evidence and testimony presented, the provisional court order from 2020 is hereby reopened. All transfers are suspended immediately. A full evaluation, including all stakeholders, will be conducted. Mediation is strongly recommended to ensure fair division and long-term resolution. Christine exhaled, tears streaming, not of revenge, but of release. Janelle's shoulders relaxed for the first time in years. Mary smiled softly, a quiet triumph washing over her. They had reclaimed what was theirs, legally and emotionally. Kody remained silent, the weight of accountability finally pressing down on him. Robyn stayed beside him, her hand still trembling, guilt and fear etched into her expression. Outside, the sun cut through the thin clouds, casting long shadows over the courthouse steps. The wives walked together, united, papers clutched in hand, not just as proof of victory, but as symbols of truth, courage, and resilience. Christine spoke softly, almost to herself. We did what was right. Not just for us, but for the family. Janelle nodded, voice steady. We stood together. And that made all the difference. Mary added, the land can't control us anymore. We are in control now. Across the steps, Kody watched them walk away, alone with the consequences of years of secrecy and manipulation. For the first time, he saw clearly control had slipped through his fingers, replaced by accountability. The narrator closes, voice cinematic and final. Kody Pass wasn't just land. It was a mirror, reflecting every secret, every lie, every manipulation. And the women who were silenced and sidelined reclaimed not just their property, but their voices, their power, and their freedom. The battle is not over, but the scales have shifted. The truth long hidden, now stands in the open. And for the first time in years, the women of Coyote Pass walk free. Weeks later, the dust had settled, but the echoes of the courtroom lingered. Coyote Pass, once a symbol of division, had become a reminder of truth, harsh, unyielding, but freeing. Christine returned to her home first. She walked through the familiar halls with a sense of ownership she hadn't felt in years. Every room, every window, every corner was hers, legally, and now emotionally. For the first time, she could breathe without the weight of deception pressing on her chest. She sat at the kitchen table, coffee in hand, and allowed herself a quiet smile. Justice had been slow, messy, and painful, but it had been delivered. Janelle's home was quieter, but her resolve radiated stronger than ever. She went through old files, financial records, and Coyote Pass maps, confirming the changes, making notes, reclaiming her authority piece by piece. No longer sidelined, no longer ignored, she felt the weight of years lift from her shoulders. Mary, who had always been the quiet observer, found her voice in small, deliberate ways. She began attending mediation sessions confidently, ensuring her perspective was considered. She realized that her power didn't need to be loud. It simply needed to exist. Robyn and Kody, on the other hand, faced a reckoning that was both legal and emotional. Robyn stayed in the house she now owned a majority of, but every glance at the unsealed files reminded her of the fractured trust she had helped build. She and Kody sat down often in long, quiet talks, not to defend or excuse, but to confront the reality of their decisions. The land that had been intended to unify them had revealed the cracks too deep to ignore. Kody, who had once believed he was the protector of Coyote Pass, now felt the isolation of accountability. Meetings with Diane reminded him that transparency, trust, and consent could not be bypassed, and that power without ethics was fleeting. The man who had maneuvered behind closed doors now had to face every choice he'd made in daylight. At mediation sessions, the wives, guided by Diane, slowly navigated the long-term division of land. Discussions were tense but fair, and for the first time, every voice mattered equally. Robyn, once the unknowing beneficiary, had to confront the imbalance her majority stake had created. The wives didn't vilify her. They negotiated, clarified boundaries, and established new terms for shared responsibilities. Months passed, and the land began to feel less like a weapon and more like a shared resource. Seasonal tasks, water rights, maintenance, and taxes became collaborative. Slowly, respect returned to the conversations. It was not warmth, not full reconciliation, but it was equilibrium. On one late afternoon, Christine, Janelle, and Mary walked along the edge of Coyote Pass, the wind soft now, no longer biting but cleansing. They spoke about past betrayals, the lessons learned, and their newfound sense of agency. Christine said softly, "We can never change the past, but we can control our future." Janelle nodded, "And we will, together." Mary smiled faintly. "This land doesn't control us anymore. We do." The camera of the narrator pans over Coyote Pass, its rolling hills golden in the setting sun. The buildings, the past, the memories, all remain, but the air feels lighter. The story is far from simple, but the truth has survived. The lies have been unmasked, the power reclaimed. Inside her office, Diane filed the final court documents, her expression unreadable. The law had been served, the hidden schemes exposed, and justice, slow but deliberate, had found its mark. Kody watched from a distance, alone on a porch overlooking the land he once thought he controlled. The wind moved through the trees, as if whispering truths he could no longer ignore. Robyn sat beside him, quietly accepting that freedom for the others came with responsibility and a reckoning she could not escape. The narrator closes with finality, cinematic and haunting. Coyote Pass was never just a place. It was a test of loyalty, of truth, of courage. And in the end, those who had been silenced and sidelined reclaimed what was always theirs: their voice, their power, their freedom. The land had revealed them, stripped away the lies, and finally set them free. Weeks melted into months. The dust of legal battles settled, but the echoes of confrontation remained. Coyote Pass, once a battlefield of secrecy and control, now felt different. It wasn't ownership that had changed, it was perspective. Truth had been unveiled, accountability enforced, and the women had reclaimed what had always been theirs. Christine stood on the porch of her home at Coyote Pass, the wind gentle now, not biting. She watched the sun melt into the horizon, casting long shadows across the land she had fought for. Every tree, every hill, every corner of that property now bore witness to her strength. For the first time in years, she felt calm. She had been silenced, sidelined, and manipulated, and yet, here she stood unbroken. Janelle joined her, hands tucked into her coat pockets, eyes scanning the familiar landscape. "We did more than win," she said softly. "We took back our voices." Mary arrived last, walking quietly but firmly. She stopped beside them, looking out at the expanse of Coyote Pass. "It's not just about the land anymore," she said. "It's about respect, about being seen." They didn't speak of Kody or Robyn. There was no bitterness, no triumphalism. That had passed. What remained was clarity, the clarity of a family no longer under the shadow of deception, no longer bound by secret clauses and unspoken hierarchies. Robyn and Kody walked along a separate path, the weight of the legal reckoning hanging over them. Robyn had always been caught between love and loyalty, and now she faced the consequences of her choices. Kody, once the orchestrator of control, had nothing left but reflection. The land he thought he had commanded had reminded him that authority without transparency is hollow. Inside the house, Diane Hallwell filed the final court documents. The ruling was clear. The 2020 provisional order was reopened, all transfers halted, and the property evaluation would include every rightful stakeholder. Mediation would continue, but the balance of power had shifted. Diane's eyes lingered on the papers, satisfied. Justice, methodical and unflinching, had been served. As evening fell, the wives gathered once more on the hill overlooking Coyote Pass. The wind whispered through the grass, soft and forgiving. Christine closed her eyes. "We were silenced for too long," she said, "but not anymore." Janelle put a hand on her shoulder. "Together," she said, "we face it together." Mary smiled faintly, a rare light in her eyes. "And this time, we decide how the story ends." The narrator's voice rises, cinematic, echoing across the land. Coyote Pass was never just a place. It was a crucible, testing loyalty, trust, and courage. Lies were unmasked, manipulation exposed, and power reclaimed. The women had been sidelined, silenced, and betrayed, but they had risen. Their voices had returned, stronger than the deception that sought to suppress them. And for the first time in years, they were free. The land that had divided them had revealed them. The truth had set them apart from deceit, and in that revelation, they found liberation. Coyote Pass would no longer control their lives. They would control it and themselves. In the end, justice wasn't about punishment. It was about awakening. It was about truth. It was about freedom. And finally, it was theirs. Kody Brown promised his family unity and honesty, but behind the cameras and smiles, a web of secrecy and manipulation was quietly unfolding. Secret refinancing documents, signed only by Kody and Robyn, gave them primary authority over Coyote Pass, sidelining Christine, Janelle, and Mary without their knowledge. The wives had been erased on paper long before the truth caught up with them in real life. A mediator's revelation that these documents were approved under a provisional court order only deepened the betrayal, showing that the law itself had been unknowingly used to consolidate power. The emotional and legal fallout began as the wives confronted Kody and Robyn. What started as disbelief turned into determination, fueled by the knowledge that they had been intentionally excluded. With the help of attorney Diane Hallwell, a fierce and strategic family property lawyer, the wives uncovered damning evidence. court transcripts showing Kody misrepresented their ability to participate, bank emails indicating majority equity intended for Robyn, and a projected ownership draft consolidating nearly all control in one pair of hands.